Hi everybody, Sandra here from Create in Spain, and this is the first of probably quite a long series of videos I'm going to be doing on iPad apps that will help your cutting life be easier. Your electronic cutting life, let me hasten to add, that's what I'm talking about. For those of you who have a Brother SCANnCUT, or maybe another machine, because these things are not limited to the Brother machines. So I'm going to open iOrnament Pro. This is something I've got in there. So I'm just going to go on Create New. Now my various tools are on this side. I'm not used to this because I normally use it in portrait mode, but because the way the camera is set up, I'm using it this way around. If I tap on this one, you can see I've got layers here. I've got a colour palette. And there are various other metallics and things like that I can use. I have a brush system, so I can have either a pencil, a brush, or a different type of nib. It gives a different effect. I've got my layers, I've got my pattern set up, and there are lots of different design modes that you can have your patterns go in. And this, believe me, is great fun to play with. And this is the only way you're really going to learn this app, to play with it. There is a magic wand tool which also adds things like sparkle effects and metallic effects. There is a help section, and we have a settings menu, and it does give you some information to give you guidelines. Now these are like background guidelines. I don't know if you can see them too well at the moment. I might have to change my background colour. This one here is post-editing of strokes. I'm not going to go into that because I'll probably confuse you. Then you have an eraser, and you have your back and forwards button, and then you have an export button. So you can export your tile. I recommend doing it as a tile. This gives you an option because it actually exports it as something which can be tiled. So it is one of these seamless pattern ideas, okay? You can export it as a seamless pattern. That's the best way of describing that. And then you have a bin at the end of the day. You can, if you don't like it, you can shove whatever you've done in the bin. So I want to choose my background colour, and at the moment, I think I better go for white because otherwise you probably won't see it too much. And I'm going to switch off this little help centre by tapping on it there. So I've got all these various lines here, and these will change if I go to a different pattern. So I can choose out of these whichever version I want. So for example, I might decide I want this one here, and I want things to go around like that, or I want them to radiate out. Now which do I fancy? Ooh, don't know. Now the design mode allows you to change settings midway, so you can have a layer which has got so many spokes if you like, and on another layer you can change it so you've got a different number of spokes. That's basically what that does. And then we have the cells. So I've got faint cells at the moment. If I put them on full or faint, let me see, full or faint, okay. The one thing that I would say is when you export your picture, whatever that might be, switch those lines off before you export, because it will export them with the lines on otherwise. So let's have a little bit of fun, because this enables you to draw mandalas and various repeating patterns without any artistic ability at all. I mean, basically, if you can hold a pencil, you can do this. And so if I do this, that's just one line I did. Okay, you can see how much fun this is going to be, can't you? And if I change the colour, where's my palette gone? Change it to pink, and go down here, and here. Do basically whatever you feel like, and you're bound to come up with a nice pattern, okay? You can't really fail on this. You might decide you want a sort of grid type pattern rather than mandala. You might decide you want all sorts of things, but you really cannot fail. I can export that, and it's a PNG. Okay, now you can export it. If you've got an Apple Mac, you can export it via AirDrop. If you haven't got that, you can email it to yourself. You can use a number of different methods to get it to wherever you want it to be in order to work on it. Now remember, this is a PNG. You can have it with a transparent background if you want. I'm going to shove that into the bin for the moment because I want to show you something which isn't immediately obvious to a lot of people. If I choose a pen, and let's make sure my colour is quite bright. Okay, I'll go for this. Now zoom in here, okay. If I do that, and then I do that, I do that, and then whatever. It doesn't make much difference whatever I'm doing, okay. If you want to put this into a trace program, you're going to want to put it into a trace program that traces the inside and the outside of the lines. Now, if you put something directly, if you do something like that, and then you put something in it and it isn't connected, you're going to lose that inner bit. You know, it's obvious. You can print it if you want to print it as a design, but if you're going to cut it out, you're going to lose that inner bit. And you would lose this, and you would lose all the inner bit. So if you're using that as a stencil, this white bit is the bit that you would get, but you wouldn't get that bit inside. It's something that my friend Alison finds very hard to work out sometimes. She wants to make stencils, but she cannot reverse the pattern, if you like, and work out what's going to be lost and what isn't, at least not all the time. So that is something that you can do with it. You can make brilliant stencils, you can make great mandalas, you can print nice designs if you want a background print or something like that. You can cut them into shapes to apply on boxes and that sort of stuff if you want as well. There's so many different uses for this. And this is not an expensive app. I think it was something like €6.99 or something. I mean, it's cheap. You've got a lot of options, you've got a lot of colours, and this particular one gives you metallic effects, it gives you texture on it, all sorts of things, lots of things to play with. You do have this wonderful help system. You can then look at that if you can't work out how to do something, so that's really handy to have. And once it's traced, it becomes a vector and you can resize it. So that's it. That is my first recommendation for an app for your iPad in order to get your crafting mojo on. The next app I'm going to show you for using with your cutting machines is actually a vector drawing app. So yes, you could draw shapes in this, send them to your machine via Canvas Workspace if you're using Brother, or by whatever means you normally use to get things to your machine, because you can export it as an SVG or you can export it as a PNG and trace it if that's what you want to do. So you have those options. Now this is called Vectornator. And Vectornator is a fully featured vector drawing app that allows you to do things like Boolean paths. Now I mean by that, you can add a circle to a rectangle, you can join it, you can subtract it, all the sorts of things that you're used to doing for cutting machines. And it's got that in it. And you know the best thing about this app? It's absolutely, totally and utterly free. Yeah, I said free. Not many apps of this quality are actually free. Now, I haven't used it a vast amount because I'm used to Concepts and this works in a different way. So for me, it's more awkward to go from one to the other. But Concepts you have to pay for. I was lucky enough, I bought Concepts when it was a one-off purchase for about £12 or $14 or whatever it is. And nowadays I think it's a bit dearer. And you need to have the paid version because if you go for the free version, which there is a free version, it's of no use to cutters because you don't have the file formats and things that you need. So I like Concepts and I use it and I really enjoy it, but it costs money. This one does not. Neither does it have any advertising on it. If you want to add a document, I've got a document here, but you can choose to add one and it gives you different options for sizing and things. So you can choose what you want to do. And I obviously have got a document here, a plain document, so I would open that up. So if I open this up, I get my work surface. Now, normally what you'd think is that you would tap on a pen or something and you would start drawing away and things would draw. It doesn't happen. And you think, what have I done wrong? What am I not doing? You go to the paintbrush and you think, oh, okay, I've got paint set, I should be able to do this. Now what you need to do is go to the layers and you need to add a layer, because it knows what size you want to do, but according to the document, it hasn't got any paper on it. And now I can do what I want to do. Okay, let's just chuck that in the bin. Now the other thing that Vectornator does, which you might find handy, it's also got the option for tracing things. So if you put in an image, you can do an image trace. Now I did do a video on this quite a while ago, and I'll try and locate it and put a link to that one somewhere down below. Not something I use very often because I've got other tracing software, but it's there, which is very unusual for this sort of app. And the one thing that really got me tearing my hair out when I tried using that was that, again, in the layers tab, in the layers tab, when you imported a picture or a photograph, it automatically had it locked. So there I was, trying to select things, trying to trace it, and nothing was happening. And it took me ages to work out. I had to unlock the layer. I just didn't expect it to be automatically locked, but it was. Anyway, so this has our nice, easy drawing capability. So you can have solid things, or you can have line drawings, and you can vary the width of your line and so on. And you can also vary how wobbly things are. So this is not corrected and this is fully corrected, and you'll end up with a straight line. So you can alter this up and down as you like. Now this is really handy because if you're used to drawing by hand, you know it's very difficult to draw things with smooth edges, whereas this helps. So if you found that difficult on a piece of paper, this is a lot easier to cope with. So you have your selection, you have your node editing, you have scissors, you have node drawing, so you get points like you do if you draw in other things, okay? You have a pencil, you have a brush, you have a text tool, and you can bring up a text box and type your text, and yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff like that. What's that one? That's shapes, yeah. And this actually goes from very rounded to, for example, very square shapes. So that's how you would do that. You have an eraser, and obviously you can decide how transparent or opaque you want your eraser to be. And you have the manual moving around tool, and you have a spyglass to zoom in. And the information that you need is generally on the right hand side. So if I look at this one, I can see what my fill is, I can see how thick or thin my lines are. If I click on this one, I can change colours, all that sort of stuff. The next tab we have is the arrange. So with this one, you can select something. So if I select that one, I can move it with this in just the same way as I can move it with that, or I could rotate it with this. And of course I can choose to have it by so many degrees if I need to do that. You can group and ungroup things, you can flip things, you can change the order of your layers, and you can align objects and distribute them. Now these are the same types of tools that you get in most cutter software. And the next one we have is paths. So this is all to do with your paths. And you can mask things, And then you have your layers tab, and that will show you how many layers. So if I put another layer on, then I can work in that layer and it won't affect the other layers, that sort of stuff. So you can just put another layer on, because you can lock this layer if you want to by clicking on that, and then nothing will happen to this. Chuck everything out, I think. So that is pretty good for a vector drawing app, and what you end up with at the end of the day, you can actually export and use in whatever way that you want to use. The export function is this one here, which is pretty common on all the Apple iPad apps, and that's your sharing. So yeah, it's pretty good, and it does have a help feature as well. Tutorials are found via the settings menu just here. There's a whole list of tutorials here, and they've also got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can also do onboarding, which isn't something that I do, but I believe that's where things go on your other screens, and you can work that way. But certainly the tutorials are useful. They have things that you can just scroll through, and lots of information to help you to get to know Vectornator. I said, not one of the ones that I know really well, but it's a very good, very powerful app, and it's free, so I can't think of anything to complain about there. So that's it. That's the second one that I recommend, and I'll see you again soon.